next tool I want to talk about is locograms. So locograms are basically a quick democratic group choice where we designate different corners of the room to represent the different options. So we could say, this corner of the room represents anxiety. This corner of the room represents depression. This corner of the room represents trauma. And this corner of the room represents something else. Go stand in the corner of the room that represents a topic or an issue that would help you the most if we were to focus on that for a group topic today. Or we could do it even simpler. If we're trying to figure out how we're going to manage an upcoming holiday time with a group, we could designate different options for different corners of the room. This corner of the room represents the option to continue to meet weekly through the holidays. This corner of the room represents the option of let's take a week off during the holidays. This corner of the room represents the option of let's not have a full therapy group during the holidays, but let's have a short Zoom check-in just to see how everybody's doing. And the other corner of the room could represent other, a different option that hasn't been named. And everybody could make a quick group choice or decision about what their preference is in terms of handling the upcoming holidays with the group. So locograms are inherently empowering in that they put the decision-making power in the group's hands instead of the facilitator's hands. Similar to locograms are what we call floor checks. So floor checks were created by Dr. Tion Dayton, and they were based on the original locograms, but she wanted to make the locograms a bit more dynamic and kind of evolve them into a longer, more involved process. So she created floor checks. Floor checks are similar to locograms. However, instead of just designating different areas of the room to represent the different options, we would print out different words or different subtopics within a larger theme or topic and place them throughout the floor, usually using many more options than just 4 or 5 options like we would in a locogram. With a floor check, Tion likes to use a dozen or more options. I found it useful to limit it to a set number of options based on how large the group is. So if I have a group of 15 participants, I might keep it short to 5 or 6 different options instead of using a dozen or 2 options. But both are useful ways of facilitating floor checks. The floor check, once we have it set up and we place the different options throughout the room, for example, if we're doing a feelings floor check, we could put paper with the word anger, and another piece with the word sadness, and another piece with the word fear, and another piece with the word guilt, and another one that says shame, and another one that says happy, and so on throughout the room. And then we would ask participants a series of questions and ask them to physically place themselves at the option that answers the question for them. So we could say, which feeling best describes your experience today? Go stand at that one. And everybody all at the same time would go stand at that one. And it would give everyone the opportunity to express how they're feeling quickly and efficiently without sitting in a circle and going one at a time, expressing their feelings check-in for the day. With floor checks, I find it really useful to have participants simply find someone that's standing at the same option as themselves, or somebody who's standing at a option nearby, and to share in a couple minutes why they chose that. So everybody gets to share in smaller groups about their choice. And again, this positions group members to support each other and to be therapeutic agents for each other. So this is an exercise that could be utilized alone as a group process or as a warm-up to a psychodrama or a creative arts therapy process or another writing process. We can modify floor checks for Zoom by using the breakout room feature. And if you're good with technology in Zoom, there's even an option where you can rename different breakout rooms, and you can give participants the option to choose their own breakout room. So you could rename the breakout rooms, the different feelings, and ask a prompt, and the participants could self-select the breakout room that they want to jump into based on their choice of feelings. So when we're using floor checks, just like any other sociometry tool, in order to keep the process trauma-informed and safe, it really helps to be following that clinical map. So we start with something simple. How are you feeling today? Then we move into something a little more difficult. Which feeling do you most try to avoid in your life? Then we might move into a positive and future-oriented prompt, something strength-based perhaps. Which feeling have you gotten better at dealing with or coping with in the past couple months? So if you wanted to learn more about floor checks, I would encourage you to check out the other video on this channel where we demonstrated them and talked about floor checks at length. Some other really useful floor check topics could be using the different symptom clusters of PTSD or CPTSD and placing them throughout the room as different options and creating different prompts related to them. You could use the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth, which is one of my favorite prompts to use in my groups. And we get the group participants thinking about ways they've grown from trauma, ways that they would like to grow from trauma going forward. I find it really useful in training groups and organizational meetings to use the 6 trauma-informed principles as floor check options. So I would place them throughout the room and ask different questions. Which principle do you feel is most central in your work as an individual? Which principle do you feel you could be better at integrating into your work? And which principle do you feel like you've grown the most in over the past year? So each of these prompts would create a different configuration of smaller groups of individuals clustered together based on shared experience. And it would give opportunities for really rich sharing in smaller groups again. So if you wanted to learn more about floor checks, I would encourage you to check out the other video that I created on this channel, which demonstrates them in action and talks about them a bit more in detail. And also check out chapter 4 in my book, which talks a bit more about floor checks. Tion Dayton also has a handful of different books and publications that address floor checks in detail.